focus on a question that the industry really cares about, which is how can telcos win in the AI value chain? So everyone knows what happened in 4G. Telcos didn't really capture the majority of the benefit, right? So a lot of that went to the hyperscalers and other companies. In AI, where can we go, right? What place can we have? What new business models can we go after? And that's really where two of my colleagues, Miguel Frade and Sebastian Cubella, are really going to look, top to bottom of the entire value chain of AI and figure out what can we do. We have players, for example, in Asia, launching their own LLMs. Is that a play for telcos? There's all the way to advanced connectivity. How do we think about transport? How do we think about new ways to connect data centers? How do we think about monetizing data? So that's really going to be the focus of the second Decode we're going to have here. Again, same philosophy, about 50% short presentation, 50% hopefully a pretty engaged audience that can ask us questions and can engage in a good dialogue. That's the plan for today. Without further ado, let me invite my colleague Jorge Amar to the stage, and hope you all enjoy it.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Guy, and I'm really excited to be sharing this, what I call probably the most difficult session, which is the session right after lunch, which is the one that is this one, and also with a packed room. So hopefully if you have more space, if you're running short of space, there's more space on this side. So as Guy was saying, we're going to start now mostly on what we are hearing from our clients, mostly telcos, in this space about how to scale AI across the enterprise, and what are some of the challenges that we are hearing from them. I think our colleague Alex Singla started this morning with this framework of how to think about scaling AI in telcos. Starting with the core, which is, how to apply AI to hyper-personalized campaigns, to frontline productivity, to smart stores, to autonomous networks. So really how to embed AI into every decision that happens in a telco operator today. Then going into AI as a service. Okay, well, let's take some of these AI capabilities and how do we embed it, to monetize the infrastructure and some of the B2B services that we deploy. And last but not least, how do we use AI to create a number of adjacent businesses that we call consumer solutions? How do we create products that can be used for financial services, for insurance, for reverse logistics, for a number of adjacent businesses that we are seeing out there? Look, if you're in this room, you're probably convinced and you know that AI is a reality in telcos. And all our data basically shows that, whether it is for the number of executives that come to us to talk about AI, for how it has stopped being top of mind as a priority or the new thing because it's already embedded into everything that telcos are doing. There's no discussion that we have today with our clients that does not involve AI in some shape or form. But having said that, one of the biggest challenges that we keep hearing is, I have all these amazing use cases on roadmap. I have taken some of them to POC, and maybe some are making it all the way to production. And that's where we want to go into. Okay, well, how do we take the notion of an AI use case from an idea to at scale, in production use case, delivering value? So let's see if we can make this work. So we're going to ask you some questions. And the first question is, how many AI or GenAI use cases you have in your roadmap at the moment? Whether it is 1 to 5 or all the way to 100, just roadmap. Not talking about how many you have on proof of concept and how many you have in production. This is interesting. I was expecting more people to put more numbers. Not that many in just 1 to 5 in the roadmap. But let's see if we get more data. But interesting that a big part, also 15% of these room or 16 have more than 100 use cases in their roadmaps. Quite a few. So let's see how these numbers change when we ask, how many do you have on proof of concept or MVP? So more on the 1 to 5. So clearly, some of the ones that we had in the roadmap are making it maybe to a POC. very interesting to see that just 1 to 5 only on POC. So let's go to the last one, which is how many do you have at scale in production at the moment? At scale in production, leveraged by the front line, delivering value, business case validated by finance. That's what I imagine. That's exactly what I imagine. So it's hard. It's really hard. So with this in mind and seeing the real challenge that it is to scale some of these use cases, what we have been doing is basically trying to understand why this happens. Let's see if I can go to the next one. And what we are seeing over and over when we talk to our clients is this notion of a maturity curve when it comes to adopting AI. We started with a lot of hype, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement from an AI perspective. And then legal came and told us that that use case was way too risky. And then we faced the reality that, yes, this idea that sounded amazing, we don't have the data maybe to fully execute it, or the data sources are disconnected and are not really enabling us to capture the full potential of this use case. And that is where we see our clients really struggling on taking that idea, that great insight that we could get from AI, that great recommendation we could put in front of the store rep to sell one extra plan, one extra upgrade, and how to do that and take it to scale. That is where we see the challenge. We also got, of course, some insights from our clients on the type of things that we are hearing. I think it's a little bit of what I was telling you before. And it emphasizes the point that there are many things that we need to do and we need to get right to capture the value. So with this in mind, I'm going to go a few more and just going to go straight into a little bit of the challenges. In a rare departure from the classic McKinsey framework that only has 3, we have now evolved and we have got 7 items. So probably it's because AI is helping us create more of these challenges. But basically, here are some of the things that we keep hearing over and over from our clients. Hey, I got this great vendor that came and offered me a proof of concept on this one use case. And I said, yes, they are investing it, so why not? But I did not take a full domain view. So now I have a collection of smaller use cases that I'm trying to build. They are not connected one to each other. And maybe they're starting to give me some conflicting results and conflicting outcomes. My technology doesn't support what I'm trying to build. My data architecture is not there either. I don't have a set of reusable, industrialized data products that I can use over and over again and quickly deploy some of these use cases. Hey, I got one vendor. Do I need to have more? Do I buy? Do I build? Do I do it on my own? Do I have the talent to do that? Do I have the talent that I need to have, not only from a data science and data engineering perspective, but also as a product owner, as someone that can drive adoption in the front line? Over and over again, we face the challenge of, we got this great machine, this great insight, and then the call center rep, the store rep, the field technician, the mechanical engineer is telling us, I know better. Why should I trust this engine? I've been doing this for the past 20 years. So then I think we covered most of it, the adoption piece, the responsible AI and the risks. We keep hearing, everyone, I don't want to be like this company that got sued because they deployed a chatbot, and then this chatbot created a refund policy that was not really a thing. And then we basically had to cover that for many customers that face that challenge. So this is a little bit of the challenge. This is a little bit of the challenge. So with that, I'm going to invite my colleague Borja that is going to walk us from like, hey, what have we seen companies that are getting this right, that are really capturing value? How have they solved and addressed some of these challenges. And a little bit of then with Kalyani, we're going to get a little bit more into how she thinks about these for Verizon. Excellent. Borja, all yours.
Thank you, Jorge. Okay, fantastic. So I want to talk a little bit of what is required to really scale AI. No? And Jorge has been talking about many problems and many challenges that needs to be overcome. No? We may think, oh, to scale AI, it's mostly a technological problem, but that's actually not the reality. It's quite a little bit more complex. It's not only tech. There are almost 7 key dimensions that at some point we need to think or we need to reflect if we want to scale AI. Tech, for sure, is one of those dimensions, and it's an important piece, as well as data. That is probably something that you are very familiar, no? But there are other ideas that needs to be considered, no? How do I do the change management? How to convince my teams and my business units to really use AI, no? How do I manage partnerships? How do I manage risk? All those 7 dimensions are key dimensions that when we have seen players successfully scaling AI, they really have a strategy or a clear plan to address each one of those dimensions. Let me walk you quickly through each one of those dimensions to explain a little bit more why are those relevant. The first one is having a clear domain perspective, no? Doing AI across organization is challenging, no? And doing different use cases in different areas typically have many complexities. What we are seeing in many players is that focusing on clear domains where we know there are many synergies. There are synergies in terms of data. There are synergies in terms of the tools that affect operation is one of the clear levers to really ensure there is a scale that we are looking for. The second dimension, very important, is technology, no? It's complicated to do AI and GenAI, and it's complicated to do the same thing all over again across the organization, no? There are many questions that arise when it comes to technology, no? How do I reuse the components? How can I leverage something that someone used, work well? How can I take advantage of that, no? How do I control the cost of all the AI I'm doing, no? So there is a concept called technology platform, GenAI platform. We will talk a little bit more about that. But this is one key lever that is super relevant to really be sure that everything that is developed can be reused in a very effective manner. The third piece is data. I will not walk in detail through data. Probably we all know it's important. Data governance and data products are absolutely fundamental. Now with GenAI, it's even more complex, no? We're adding non-structured data into the equation. How do we manage that type of information? It's really important to have a clear path to really have control and real understanding of that information we're having, no? At the very end, data is what fits each one of the models. The fourth thing, very interesting as well, is the partnership ecosystem, no? How do we take decisions of build versus buy? Building a new solution is complicated. Sometimes in the market, there are many solutions, but how do we take that decision? What is our strategy? And a similar idea applies to partnership, no? Who are the right partnerships that we need or we should have, no? Same with vendors. How do I choose one provider? When do I choose another provider? How I take that cycle of decisions, no? And how do I ensure that those decisions are standardized across the organization, no? We don't want everyone having different approaches that leads to different results. That's not the key for scaling, no? So having a clear view or perspective over this partnership ecosystem is also one absolutely important lever. The fifth dimension, change management, no? We're doing AI, we're developing awesome models, but how do we ensure that our business teams, our users, really use those models? And sometimes it takes many decisions to make this possible. We need to think, how can we change the workflow, no? How can we used to do things in a way, now we have AI, we need to change the way we do things, no? What's our plan to foster that change? And there are some ideas, there are incentive plans, there are transformational offices, but it's really important that we think, how can we foster that change in the day-to-day of the teams and the users that will use AI? And the last two dimensions is more about operating model. how do we control all those elements, no? Having clear path on those dimensions is complicated. How we're going to make it? Do we have a centralized team managing that? It's important to reflect on that. And the last piece for sure is risk. No? Jorge was mentioning before, risk is important. In the GenAI world, it's even more important. No? How do we have a standardized control in a way that we are sure that anything that we get from the models is risk compliant and we don't expose ourselves of our data to any potential dangerous scenario. No? So again, it's not a simple path, but those are the 7 dimensions that we typically see in players that are successfully scaling solutions. No? Let me walk you quickly through the second one, no? The GenAI platform. Okay? What is the GenAI platform? Why is it important? No? As I was saying before, technology is a challenge. No? We want to do AI at scale. The GenAI platform is a concept, is a construct that tries to overcome very common problem that I'm sure you are facing in your organizations. No? How do I ensure that my teams are not working in silos? How do I ensure that every team is not developing the same solution all over again, the same rack system? No? And whenever I find an AI solution that works, how do I easily put it into production environment and I keep it working all over again? That's this idea of a GenAI enterprise platform, which is a more centralized unit that basically tries to overcome those problems. No? How do we, every time that we develop something that works and it proves that works, how can we easily make this accessible to other teams to use it and reuse it all over again? And those components that we all know and can be reused, how can we put those into production in a simple way? Very quickly, those platforms typically what we're seeing is that they are made up of 4 main elements. No? There is a component of foundational toolings. What are the tech stack that I want to use for my AI and GenAI models? Then are components. Those are snippets of code that can generalize, can be applied in many scenarios. Then services, microservices, APIs that can provide those components in a very simple way to their teams. And the last piece, recipes. No? How can I combine the tech stack, the code, and the APIs to actually create a use case for a marketing team to really drive a real impact? No? The combination of those elements is what really creates a platform that fosters the reuse of code, accelerates deployments in production, and basically fosters the scalability of AI. And to detail a little bit more about those experiences, not only the platform, but talking as well across all those dimensions, we have Joshan and Kalyani, some colleagues that will walk you through more detailed questions.
As Jorge and Borja were covering, there's a lot of effort, a lot of thinking that telcos have been driving in terms of, hey, what does it take to scale AI? What are the challenges that we need to overcome? So we actually want to shift gears a little bit and hear from somebody who has actually gone through a lot of those challenges. Somebody who you could say has been a leader in terms of really driving AI at telcos and in some ways has pioneered a lot of the thinking that has been set the standard in a lot of ways for other telcos. So Kalyani Sekar, who is the Chief Data and AI Officer at Verizon, some of you may be familiar with her. Kalyani, we just wanted to start with, would love to hear a little bit about your personal story. You've been at Verizon for, I think, 20 plus years at this point. How did you grow to be the head of data and AI at one of the largest telcos in the world?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that question, Joshan. Now you are asking me to rewind 20 years of my career, and let me try to explain that in 2 minutes. I think last 20 years, I worked in service companies before joining Verizon, but with Verizon, I'm working for the last 20 years. But if you look into my career, and I worked across different technologies and started my career with C, and then did Oracle certification, Java. So across technologies I worked. And in Verizon, I had the privilege of working across portfolios. That gave me an opportunity to understand business end-to-end. So worked in network for a period of time in the initial days, and then enterprise, consumer, worked across different areas. So along the whole journey, right, and after that, I had an opportunity of transforming Verizon India, which is the India arm of Verizon. Then worked on the strategy and transformation, working with Cameron on the whole, setting up the transformation office for the entire IT. So throughout my career, let me get on to AI data, but before that, throughout the career, and one thing I really enjoyed is the constant learning I had every 2 years. Either a new portfolio or a new technology or new certification, something or the other I learned. But one thing that was constantly in my mind, in wherever I worked, is always understanding, always trying to understand how it is impacting the business, whether it is helping the top line or the bottom line, and how it is impacting the overall numbers. I always ask the question, so what in me, again and again and again, till I get the final answer. So that is my journey before COVID. When we hit the COVID, and that's when the whole CDO office was formed in Verizon. So the CDO at that time approached me and she asked me, Kalyani, would you like to lead my data engineering practice? I said, yeah, let me try that, because it is almost, I was in the strategy transformation organization for 2.5 years, and that's the time for me to rotate. So I got into the data engineering. So I don't know whether it is my luck or at that time. So I got in there, Verizon sold Yahoo. All our data was in vGrid, which is a Yahoo grid. So I got into the NDA and got into that project, and that was moving all the data, and that's when we were transforming the data to cloud. So it was an interesting journey. I finished that. Then I got into the role of leading the whole AI and data. So never I had a dull moment, and never I had, no one said no to me when I asked question to understand the business impact and how things change when technology really impacts the business.
No, that's such a great story. And speaking of stories of evolution and growth, like, what has been the story at Verizon? Where did you start and where are you today when it comes to AI and now GenAI?
Good. So with respect to AI in Verizon, I would say Verizon leveraged AI for many years, and for a couple of decades, it was leveraging AI. So there were point solutions, starting from clearly seeing how to manage the base, how to identify the intent, route the call. So there are many places we had point solution where the AI got integrated with the systems here and there, and that's how it was. So these point solutions were built for different business units individually, and that's where we started. When we formed AI&D, and that's when we really thought through on how we industrialize this practice. Because when we look into telecom and look into the entire business from commercial, network, or corporate, the number of use cases are, I would say it is not unlimited, it is limited. And there are lots of similarities when you look at it from consumer to small, medium business across. The use cases are very similar. So that's when we thought, okay, we'll industrialize the whole AI. So that is the evolution we got into. So we started building the core models and start building applied models on top of it. Okay, when we think about workforce productivity as an example, or how we really forecast the resources that are required in the field, that forecasting, it's almost very similar algorithm when you look at the forecast of call center versus retail center versus technician versus the NRB, where the engineers handle all the repairs. So those things, if you look at it, the core model becomes the same, and the applied models are something we always built on top of it. That really helped us to industrialize the practice. From there, when the whole generative AI came in, or just before that, we started thinking about AI systems. What is AI systems? Thinking about the process end-to-end, thinking about the persona end-to-end, and clearly leveraging AI in all applicable places so that there is connected intelligence when we look at things as end-to-end, right? That is what we started doing. So when we think about call center, we think about it holistically. What is a day in the life of a call center? The call comes in, okay, understand the intent. Once you understand the intent, route the call to the right center. Once you know when the call goes to the center, you know which rep is the right rep to pick up the call. So start pairing the rep with a call. When the rep takes the call, provide the intelligence on the flow, which is more of a real-time nudges for the rep so that they'll be able to handle the call. When the call is done, summarize. Once the summarization is done, prepare the nudges so that you'll be able to coach the rep. This is a cyclic thing we can do. If you think about the AI and data, that is very much stitched across. That is where we really evolved. And now if you think about anyone in Verizon, they don't talk about we are doing traditional AI. No, we are doing predictive, we are doing prescriptive. No. The objective is look at end-to-end and apply wherever if it is predictive AI, apply predictive AI. Here it is generative, apply generative. I think that's how we started thinking about. Along with that, the thought process is, yeah, prediction is a good thing, but it is almost like, and I'm sure my team will say that all the time, prediction is almost about admiring the problem, right? You know this is going to happen. But the key is how you are going to intervene, right? I think that's where the action is very important as much as you do prediction. So I think looking at these two hand in hand, I think that's how we evolve now.
And what would you say, like, that's great. Like, I love the call center example of like, hey, it's not just one specific use case, there's multiple use cases that are in a cycle. What are like some of the other use cases that Verizon has scaled that has driven like the most impact and value?
I can give many examples, but let me give you the example of how we manage the base, right? When we have so many customers in the system, we always think about, okay, what is the retention propensity of the customer, right? I think that's the first thing, okay. You have so many customers, customer goes through so much of experience in the system. Every day, start clearly understanding the propensity of this customer staying with us or the propensity of this customer leaving from us. So understand the propensity, that's the first part. That's again, in my definition, admiring the problem. Yeah, you know this customer is not happy. The next thing is, you really need to understand who are all the customers who are in that category, right? And how do we create a cohort of those customers? That's the second step. Create the customers cohort who are going through similar kind of challenges. Okay, that's the next step. What are you going to do with them? What is the treatment you are going to do? Then the next step is how are you going to deliver that treatment? Once you deliver the treatment, then get into the whole cycle of did the customer take the treatment, start doing the measurement. If it is not working, go and fine tune the model, right? I think that's the cycle that we go through. And I can give more and more examples of that.
No, it's great. I'm sure both those cases, the base management and the call center and other things you've done in network were super easy from day one. You had like zero challenges as you went through it, right? Like you had the team working and it was great. As you reflect on some of the challenges that Jorge and Borja teed up across those 7 dimensions, like what were the biggest challenges for Verizon as you got to that place where you have multiple use cases working in tandem and in a unified manner?
I would say it's a good, some of the challenges are good to have and some of the challenges are not so good. Let me talk about the good challenges. Good challenges are there is never dearth of demand for AI. So we are pounded with so many ideas that come up from different portfolios, my CIO partners, my business partners, they all come back and say, okay, let's do this AI, let's do this AI. But the challenge is how do you prioritize what you can do? Because the budget is limited, capacity is limited. And the change, how much changes the organization can take is very limited. So how do we identify the right use case that is going to give the maximum return? So we have a clear matrix there. And because you have to be very objective when you say no, and that's where we take all the use cases and clearly have 4 parameters to clearly say, okay, which one we are going to prioritize and which one is not. First one is technical feasibility, technically whether we can do this. Second one is financial viability. Third one is what is the value? And fourth one is risk. And I know Borja talked about the data governance and model governance and all, it is important. So these are all the 4 areas we look into so that you have a very balanced approach when you say yes or no. And when you say no, you also explain the why behind that. That's a good problem to have. And the second one is AI becomes more and more powerful in the presence of data, and all of us know data, it's very subjective. I think you really need to have the data complete, and at the same time, the data has to be, the quality should be good, and you should have the observability of data. Because when we talk about AI runs with minimum human in the loop with minimum or no human in the loop. So everything has to work like a pipeline, whether you talk about data, whether you talk about model. The data has to come in, the ingestion should happen, harmonization of data should happen, then the model should start taking, and model should start creating the features, run, predict the output. All these things will happen almost like an infinity, right? It goes and up and run. So it's important for us to ensure that the data quality is good, data is observable. When there is problem, we have the right kind of lineage so that we can go up to source and fix the problem then and there. Because the systems and the decisions are made based on the predictions that are done by the AI when you do it at scale. So it is almost, I think now it is essential and it is important for us to treat, if some problem happens, it's an outage for the business. So you really need to have such a rigorous process to work on it. I think that's another thing I would say it's a big challenge.
I mean, these are challenges that we hear consistently, not just from telcos across the world, as most people here would have heard some of those similar challenges, but also enterprises across the world. And this is more of a personal Verizon specific question. Like, what allowed you to overcome those challenges? Was it throwing resources at the problem? Was it getting like some sort of strategic top-down mandate that unlocked things? Like, what helped you overcome those challenges in a way that allowed you to be, to your point, deploy and scale these AI use cases across the enterprise?
I would say the first one is the right kind of investment and focus that we had. Because it's okay, I know AI is very exciting, but the focus did not start with AI. The focus always started with data. Do you get the data right? I think that is something the team constantly monitor the pipelines like a hawk to ensure that the data is coming right. So that is, I think that discipline is something that, that really helped. And the second thing is, I would say the automation and looking at things like a pipeline, the whole industrialization and as much investment that you do in building the models and building the pipeline, it's important for us to focus on the ops part. How it is a rigorous automation and the focus that the team has in operational excellence and monitoring the pipeline day in, day out and take actions then and there. And the third one is having the right kind of agreement with the sources who are giving the data. It is not, if you think about AI and data, that sits almost towards the end of the pipeline. Having the right kind of agreement with the sources to make sure that the sources care for data from quality perspective, from availability perspective, and the transparency that happens starting from the source till the model gets consumed. That is also another thing we look into. Oh. The fourth one, I would say, is setting the right expectation with the business. Because we always make sure that business also has the literacy to understand how to read the output and coming back to us. Because if they think that, okay, everything is not my problem, because it's not easy. They really need to start looking into the data, and if they see any anomalies or if they see any challenges, That constant feedback is very important.
Yeah. Maybe one other thing that I would add, maybe which we have heard quite a bit, is it's related to your fourth point. The successful scaling of AI has always had one thing in common, is to your point, just getting alignment at the C-suite level with the business. It can't just be like a tech-facing kind of push. Getting alignment, getting the business leaders aligned, and becoming almost a core part of the corporate strategy ends up opening a lot of doors, be it in terms of resources, be it in terms of coordination, and kind of driving that forward. One particular part that I want to dive into is a piece that Borja touched on, which is respect to the, building and thinking about a reusable modular platform as a way to scale AI, and especially GenAI. Because an infobot for a customer service agent has a lot of similarities with an infobot for a network technician or an infobot for a retail store rep. I would love to understand how Verizon thought about the reusability and modularity and scalability from an AI platform standpoint as you scale some of these AI use cases.
That's an interesting question. When Jorge was doing the survey, I was really thinking about, I was pinging the person who was running my COA and asking the question on how many use cases we have as of now. Because I know my memory goes up to 1,200 that I remember, but now I heard that it is around 1,500 ideas. So when November 2022, when the whole ChatGPT opened up the excitement in the industry, because when we talk about generative AI, it impacts every human in the industry and every human in the organization. So when ChatGPT came and there are, I think maybe definitely in Verizon, everyone really wear the hat of AI, data, technology all the time. So when we were talking about ideas, in no time, we got around 300 ideas. 300 ideas first few months, I think maybe 1 month or so. So we were really thinking about how to go about it. The best part we did was, okay, in Verizon, AI is centralized. AI and data are very centralized organization. That really helped us to have a leapfrog in generative AI. So in AI COE, we created a GenAI COE. We created a very good process of having an intake process. So all the ideas came in. And at the same time, we quickly created an experimentation platform for people to experiment. So that's also important. So the experimentation platform got created, around 300 ideas. Within no time, 50 ideas, they were able to do some POCs and say, hey, this is a possibility. That happened. Then the question was, okay, how do we scale? Because there were lots of questions on hallucination. Hey, it will have an impact to the reputation of the organization, what to do. Then the next question is, people said, hey, there will be lots of investment that you need to do, and we don't know what the investment is. It was only we know dollar, question. We don't know what it is. So we were wondering on, okay, how do we handle it? So we quickly came up with a process of, okay, now let's have an intake. So we took the intake, and when we took the intake, and we got almost around 40, 50 use cases. And one thing we could clearly come up with, as you rightly said, there are 3 or 4 different design patterns we could clearly see. One design pattern, it's a content creation. It can be creation of campaign. It can be creation of summary. Some content creation, that's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm talking about text. I'll go on, I think maybe I don't want to get into images and video and all, just text. The second one is the Q&A. Okay, you have a set of documentation. They can ask questions from any document, and you should be able to give a very precise answer. The third one is about the long document, right? I think processing long document and answering that. And there are another 2 or 3 patterns. So we looked into it, and we clearly said that, okay, these things follow these kind of archetypes. Okay, if I go into little technical, we said, okay, this is RAG, this is prompt, this is fine tuning. So we were able to clearly define that. Then we got into, okay, what kind of capabilities or services we need to build for that? We started building the capabilities and services. So that is mainly for data processing and how we handle the models and all. And along with that, we also created Model Garden. For all these things, we need a platform. So we named the platform as Vegas. It's not the Vegas that we all know. It is the Verizon Enterprise GenAI Platform Services. That is the Vegas platform.
You mean you were not taking a game of dice with GenAI?
Definitely, we did the gaming there, but it was a good name the team came up with, and we gave the name. Today, if you look at it, that platform is available, and we stood up almost 3 or 4 design patterns in that with all the available services. And it is not just building the use cases with the platform. It is also monitoring the use case, because we need to have the constant LLM ops practice, right? I think for that, we also built the services where all the use cases are constantly monitored for ensuring that we have the right business KPIs, right risk KPIs, and right kind of model KPIs. See, we measure that all the models that are running here, all the use cases that are running here, we monitor the results and we take corrections then and there. So that, I would say, taking a step back, looking at all the use cases, coming up with the design patterns, enabling the services, building the platform, really helped us to scale generative AI today across.
And the piece you mentioned about the LLM ops and almost the GenAI FinOps, having a platform not only allows you to track the benefits and the KPIs, but also allows you to really tightly manage the cost. So you actually have a full view on, hey, what are the different components coming through, and what is the cost per use case and per recipe and other pieces. Look, I know I've asked a bunch of questions. I know we still have a little bit of time. We'd love to open it up for questions to the audience. The same QR code should still work, and I should be able to pull up the questions on my thing. But would love if anyone in the audience has a question or two for Kalyani or any of the other folks here.
Or Joshan too.
Or me. I am not 100% sure if my thing is working, but if not, oh. All right, Quarantine, if you are seeing questions, oh, there you go.
You mentioned you thought about the use cases, and so many use cases have come your way. So far, have you shot down any of those ideas based on the ROI and the investment that will go on building those use cases?
Yes. That's not an easy one, and that's where I said it's an objective way of saying why not. And sometimes, I think maybe there are 2 things, right? One, we shut down the use case if we don't even see any value, because it's more of excitement and not value. But if there is a very strong commitment and they want to do a POC, it is reusing some of the services and enabling one use case. We allow that to run for a pilot, very limited time, and if it is not working, we always go back and say no for that.
Thank you.
I actually got the questions coming up, so I can actually ask you what people have been typing in.
Did I answer your question? Thank you.
I love this question. Like, one of the key things about GenAI has been just there's so many different players and vendors and partners that are out there that are doing really, really innovative things. But as a chief data and AI officer, how do you think about your partner ecosystem and leveraging different partners and vendors for scaling AI and GenAI?
I would say if I come back in Vegas or anything, right, whatever we built, if I come back and say that everything was built by me and my team, I'm fooling here. Definitely, there are services built by my team, but there is lots of partnership with the ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, partnership with the hyperscalers and partnership with some of the good startups, specifically in the area of LLM ops, in the area of data pre-processing, area of how we manage the knowledge graph. I think there are lots of good startups who are open to work with us and build the solution along with us. So that really helps us the agility to operate, right? Because when you build some of the capability based on what you have, some startups bring in those services and hyperscalers bring in some of the services. That really helps us.
Oh, that's great. This is an interesting question. How do you...
Is that question from quarantine again? No?
No. I was asking quarantine to pull up the list of questions
Oh, okay.
because I couldn't figure it out on the iPad. As you think about your role as a Chief Data and AI Officer, how do you think about it with respect to being a change agent or being at like the forefront of changing a company or an enterprise? Like that, the concept of being a change agent, how do you personally think about it?
I feel when we talk about AI, leader who is leading AI, I feel it is the leader should have the blend of technology, business, and the data and AI capability, all of them together. Because if you say the intersection, that is where the leader should have the blend of all of them. It's very hard, right? It's always hard for one individual or one team in the organization to evolve and come up with new ideas. And especially when we talk about the idea for the next horizon and the subsequent horizon, it is, if you are in the weeds of business, doing the business day in, day out, it's very hard for them to come up with the idea. So what we do is, we sitting on the side, looking into how the business work, and looking at how things work across the organization, because when we talk about AI team is a horizontal team across the enterprise. When we enable the whole call center bot and the whole call center setup for one business unit, we could clearly see that the same thing can be implemented for the other business unit also. Then when we implemented that for business unit, the commercial units, we realized that people who are serving for customers on the network, we can leverage lots of capability from here to that also. If you go back and talk to the network team, they may not have any clue on what we are talking about because it's very hard for them to visualize what we are talking. It's a constant first thing. It's more of telling the story on how all these things work in their language and also talk about the estimated ROI they'll get out of that, number one. Number two, how do you show what is possible with a small proof of concepts? Right? Because when you build all the services and everything, it is easy for you to show what is possible by building a proof of concept with their own data. So these are all the things we do, the constant iterative conversation, and at the same time doing a proof of concept, and having the credibility to have a seat in the table is also important. Those three things, I would say, it really helps us to navigate through the organization.
And I like this question. I'll make sure I send you the full list of questions because it keeps coming in. I'll maybe ask one more, and you kind of alluded to it. The question is, how does Verizon approach traditional AI, especially in the world of like GenAI and agentic workflows and the next generation AI that is starting to happen? What is the role of traditional AI?
I would say the traditional AI is destined to stay. I won't say that with the generative AI, traditional AI will be gone. Traditional AI still has the role to play in the area of decision making, in the area of key management decisions. Definitely traditional AI plays a role. All the examples we talked about, predicting the intent, and also predicting the anomalies in the network, and deciding on the proactive action, what you can do with the network, and running a autonomous network. All of them, I would say that there is a huge role that traditional AI will play. When I talk about generative AI will complement traditional AI wherever it makes sense.
Yeah, and I know you alluded to it too, the whole notion of multiple pieces, predictive, more traditional AI, generative AI, all kind of working in tandem is probably what really unlocks the impact. Like, yes, you could have had a fantastic AI solution, but if the cognitive load for an agent was super high, there was no way you were actually capturing the impact. With GenAI, that traditional use case suddenly became a lot more easier for the agent or the employee or whoever it is that will capture. All right, I know we're at time. I'm sure this was an exciting session for the audience, so thank you for sharing a lot of like truly deep insights into some of the challenges that you've had and also how you've kind of overcome that and helped really, really scale AI at Verizon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.